Hi, welcome to my Deep Wreck Diver channel. This is Dom Robinson. I love diving on military wrecks, although often they're really sad as well, because most of the time people have lost their lives on these vessels. Today's dive is on His Majesty's Norwegian ship, Eskdale. This was a heavily armed Hunt-class destroyer that was operated by the Royal Norwegian Navy. Whilst escorting a convoy of freighters, it was torpedoed by German E-boats, with the very sad loss of 25 of the crew. It now lies at 70 metres off the Cornish coast, which is a really nice depth for a technical dive, hitting that sweet spot of quite a good amount of bottom time, whilst also being sufficiently difficult to get to that not many people have dived it. During my research for this video, I came across this photo which was taken only a few weeks before the Eskdale was sunk. You'll notice that the crew members are sitting on top of the two 21-inch torpedo tubes that the Eskdale carried. The very same torpedo tubes, and possibly even the same torpedo, are still there on the seabed, on the wreck today. So I'm really fortunate that I've been able to dive the Eskdale twice, once in 2022 and once in 2023. Both dives were off Dark Star, operating out of Falmouth in Cornwall. And one of the particularly nice things about the Eskdale, other than its depth, is how close it is to the shore. So transit times are actually really nice. One of the things that's not quite as nice about the Eskdale is because it is quite close to shore, and because you've got the River Fal emptying out into Falmouth Bay, it does mean that it can be quite silty and dirty at the bottom. So, and you'll see that on the video. Clearly this video is also one that's been taken by a camera mounted on the front of my scooter. So because of that, there's going to be bits of the dive where I let go of my scooter and it drops to the bottom. So it's a kind of different quality of video footage to the ones that you get when I have the power lens mounted to my helmet. But hey, it is what it is. So so here I am in the descent, and you can already see the water starting to get kind of that horrible green colour, which normally means either you're going through a layer and it's going to get clear at the bottom, or the viz is just not going to be great. There's the lazy shot just going past. And if you haven't already watched my lazy shot video, then you might want to do that. There's a few tags on there. I'm just going to stop here and I'm putting my tag on. You won't see me do it because this is the front of the scooter, but that's what's happening. And now I'm kind of heading down, kind of hoping that perhaps the viz might start to improve as we get down. Bit of a spoiler, that's not going to happen. So this was the warm-up dive before we headed off to do a whole load of stuff in the western approaches, which ultimately resulted in us finding the USS Jacob Jones. If you've not seen that video, well, here's a link to it so you can go and have a look at it. So this was a warm-up dive, just sort of making sure that everybody in the team was happy with the boat and everybody's gear was sorted and all that kind of stuff. So it was actually much better than we thought it was going to be. I don't know why we didn't think it was going to be great, but we didn't. And if you want to do a brilliant technical dive out of Falmouth, then I just can't recommend the Eskdale strongly enough. It's the wreck is actually in two halves. So what you're going to see here is the dive that we did on the stern. The Eskdale wasn't a particularly massive ship, and it got hit by two torpedoes from the E-boats. And those torpedoes blew it in half, which is probably one of the reasons that there was such a loss of life. Now, I've not dived the bow, but it's approximately 100 metres away from the stern. As I'm coming down here now, you can start to see the strobes. So I'm obviously not the first diver on this wreck. You can actually see that there's 3 strobes down already. So the Dark Star procedure is that the first pair of divers in, they take in the lazy shot, and they also ensure that the grapple is in the wreck. So that's what these guys have done. I'm just stopping now. I've let go of my scooter. Clearly, I'm attaching my strobe to the wreck, and you've just seen there Rick Ayrton go past me. So it's yet another dive I've done with Rick. It seems like I've If you watch my videos, he's pretty much on all of them. But he's a great person to dive with. I'm very fortunate. And 2 days after this was the day that we found the Jacob Jones and the day that we found the Bell. So one of my most memorable dives. But this one was great as well. And you can see I'm on the bottom now, just under 70 meters. And the great thing about Navy ships is that they're absolutely full of stuff. Unlike steamships, cargo ships, which, you know, most of the time the cargo gets washed away or they didn't have any or whatever else. Military vessels are absolutely full. You can see there directly in front of me is the propeller, or one of the propellers. This would have had 2 shafts. The blades on that prop have been broken off. Don't know why, or at least one of them has anyway. Might have been when it hit the bottom. May have been the damage done to the torpedo. May even have been that at some point somebody's come and salvaged this. But definitely a military vessel, definitely relatively modern. You can see that by the fact there's wiring absolutely everywhere. So lots of electricity on this boat, which means it's relatively modern. Nice little crayfish there. For those of you who like things, in fact, 2 crayfish. The thing with crayfish, obviously, is they're sociable animals. So whenever you see one, you see more of them. And so undoubtedly there'll be another 3 or 4 somewhere around. Not that I'm particularly interested in them. They just happen to see them. And that there is with the chain on top of it. That is part of the prop shaft. And there's a big old edible crab down at the bottom of it there. So I don't know what I'm doing here. In fact, there's an anchor as well, just to the left of it. In fact, there's another crayfish. I said that there'd be a lot of them around, and there certainly are. So literally, I've been on the bottom, probably less than a minute, and already there is a load of stuff. You can see why that anchor's down there, because the chain was wrapped around the prop shaft. So they were never getting that back again. So like any dive, the very first thing you got to do is try and figure out where you are. So that's kind of what I'm doing at the moment. You can see I've just stopped to do something here. I've put my scooter down. To be honest, I've got no idea what that was. I can't remember. Maybe I had something with my gear that needed sorting out, or who knows. But anyway, whatever it is, all sorted now. So getting on with the dive. And as you can see here, there's this is really close to the shore, as I've already mentioned, this wreck. So there's loads of stuff around on here. You've already seen loads of fishing line and loads of rope, and there's bits of really old net and all sorts of stuff down here. So got to be relatively careful with that. There's also loads of nice things as well. You probably just saw a pink sea fan on the seabed there. So, get all that sort of stuff. And there's obviously fish all over the place as well, which is really nice. Here we go. More of these kind of cables and wires, and there's bits of brass everywhere. Who knows what all this sort of stuff is, but it is a nice thing about military vessels, is they're just absolutely full of things. This thing here, I think, might be part of the steam turbine system. I don't know why I think that, but you can see it's all brass, or bronze rather, and so therefore it's an important part of the ship to be made of that. So it would have been in contact with steam or seawater or something. They made it out of bronze for a reason. I think you probably saw me there flashing to Rick, who's come over to have a look at it. He's trying to figure out what it was as well. We had a big old chat on the surface, and we kind of came to a conclusion, probably steam turbine, but neither of us really knows. So anyway, there we go. We'll kind of move on. Rick's got his camera there. No doubt he'll have had some decent stills of that. But you can see off to my left-hand side here, there's just wires and cables everywhere. This is actually the starboard side of the ship. So it is resting kind of on its starboard side. So just kind of following the seabed up. Something I tend to like to do on wrecks is I like to go around the edge of the ship, get my bearings, and then go into the middle of the ship. So you'll see me do that later on. And obviously on this one, because we know it's broken in half, I will eventually get to the brake. So I'll come around in a circle and end up back at the props, which is obviously where I started. And obviously a vessel like this, if you think about it, this had, I think, 4 sets of 4-inch guns. So that was the main armament. And it also had a load of 20mm machine guns as well. So it had depth charges. It had the 2 massive torpedo tubes that you saw at the beginning of the video footage. So there's a whole load of stuff on here, and you consider it not a particularly big ship either. These things are about 80 meters long, about 1,000 tons. So they were designed for kind of escort work, anti-submarine work, very versatile ships. The Eskdale spent a lot of time doing convoy duty, but it also was involved in a fairly significant surface engagement when it sunk a couple of it sunk a German minesweeper, in fact, a converted merchant ship. I mean, once again here, you can see there's a whole load more brass or bronze stuff, non-ferrous, whatever it is. All sorts of interesting bits and pieces. When you consider that this wreck was so close to Falmouth, it's actually been dived a reasonable amount, but there's still interesting bits and pieces all over it, which is nice, and it is because it is that depth, 70 meters. It's outside the range for air diving, really, even back in the day. Also, outside the range for, lots of people, technical divers like to do 60 meters ish. So they would consider this a bit deep for them. So once again, it's relatively infrequently dived. Something interesting there. I don't know what that kind of thing that looks a bit like a lampshade or something is. One of the really interesting things about this wreck, and it's a real pity that I don't have a photo of it, but I have seen one. Is a guy recovered a Bakelite model aircraft off it, and there's that lampshade or whatever it is. The Bakelite model aircraft. The view was that it was used for some sort of anti-aircraft, either recognition or maybe some sort of anti-aircraft training. I don't know, but the chap who found it always believes that there may be more down on the wreck. So. Both the times I've dived, I've looked out for it. In fact, there we go, just in front of me there, just gone past it. An anti-aircraft mount, probably I think one of the 20mm cannons that the Eskdale carried. So as I say, there's just stuff all over this wreck, and it's really nice. It makes it really interesting. Steamships, you can. There's only certain areas where you can find good stuff, which is normally the bow, the bridge and the stern. The cargo holds are normally relatively dull, but this obviously military vessel, just absolutely full of stuff. And I think this area here, you can see just in front of me, is some sort of control room. So they had damage stations, they had auxiliary bridges, all sorts of stuff. And I think this just in front of me here is possibly that's possibly what it is. Second World War, obviously the ship carried radar as well, so you can see all this wiring and everything, all part of making those important systems work. I'm not sure why I've stopped here, but probably I'm having a look at something or pulling something out. Obviously, this camera is mounted on the front of my scooter. So it's great when I'm scootering around, you can see what's in front of it. But if anytime I stop, I let go of the scooter, and therefore you don't see what I'm doing or what I'm looking at. But this is the bit that I refer to as the kind of control room. You can see there's all sorts of bits and pieces going on here. In fact, there's some speaking tubes in front of me. You can see them there. So this was probably might be in the auxiliary bridge or some sort of control, maybe gunnery control or something like that. In this area, actually, a friend of mine, a few years after this dive, found a telescope, which is obviously interesting. I mean, you just think about who the last person to hold that telescope would have been. And going back, obviously, to the fact that 25 Norwegian sailors died on this ship when it was sunk. Maybe it was one of those. No, here we go. You can just see in front of me there are the guns. So those are the 4-inch, 100mm guns. It had 4 of these in twin mounts. So that's one of the twin mounts there. Probably there was one mounted quite high near the stern. So that's pretty much almost certainly what that is there. Just incredible to see that lying on the seabed. And I think quite close by to this is some ammunition, and you've seen the clip of that at the beginning of it. In fact, I think just in front of me there, you can see some crushed ammunition there. You can see the warhead would have been iron. The actual cartridge case is bronze or brass, and because they're still airtight, the water pressure, 8 bar at 70 meters, crushes the air that's in the cartridge case, so you get that kind of really funny shape. Rick's obviously, I think he spotted the gun as well, so he's here taking some photos. There's some more of those crushed cartridge cases you can just see in front of me. One just in the right of the screen there. I'm kind of giving it a really good, taking some really good video of it. And there's another one directly in front of me. That one not so much crushed, or not crushed on the top anyway. May well be crushed underneath. Clearly these are still live. These are still armed. This was a ship at war, and therefore all the ammunition, everything on here is live. There's the breeches of the twin gun mounts. So this vessel was under attack by E-boats. So these guns would have been operated, potentially were firing back as they were being attacked. So absolutely incredible to think. And, there's probably still shells in the breeches of these things. So, incredible. This is a real piece of history. And whenever I dive these things, I like to think about that history. I like to think about what was happening at the time this vessel was sunk. I mean, imagine those are massive torpedoes. The German ones were very, very similar to the British ones in terms of size, and the amount of explosive they had on them was huge, because they weren't just designed for sinking small ships like this destroyer. They were designed for sinking really big ships like battleships and those kind of things. So they had a huge explosive punch to them. And that's why when 2 of those torpedoes hit the Eskdale, they quite literally blew it in half. Those are some more ammunition boxes in front of me there. That's smaller caliber ammunition, probably for the Eskdale also had 4 quad 2-pounder guns. So those were anti-aircraft guns. And that we've just seen there, I'm pretty certain is the ammunition for the anti-aircraft guns, carried in brass boxes. And there we go in front of us. You've seen a bit of video of this already, but that's ammunition for the 4-inch guns, the main armament on the ship. And you can see there's a whole load of it, and you can see the kind of side of the hull there as well. So this is stored right up against the side of the hull. No doubt in somewhere where it could be easily shipped up for use in the gun. But there's a lot of ammunition there. So clearly they were equipped for a big fight. And as I say, when they sunk the German minesweeper, it wasn't just a German minesweeper that got sunk. It was, I think, the Eskdale was part of a number of other destroyers, and between them they sunk a couple of the minesweepers, and also quite badly damaged some of the German freighters that were being escorted by the minesweepers. And the wreck is off Dieppe, so just in on the kind of French coast, close to Belgium there, and is actually quite diveable, I'm told. Now, just clearly this is now crockery, and you can see bottles there. So this is this must be the galley. So this is where the men who lived and died on this ship, this is where they would have had their meals. This is what they would have eaten. So absolutely incredible to think. The plates, there's a cup there. You probably just saw it. People who casserole dish just off to my left there. The people who were on this ship, these were the plates that they used. This was where they ate. And I've put the scooter down, so presumably I'm just pulling something out to have a look at it. Now, you may say that's disrespectful to disturb some plates on a ship in which people died, and I can understand that point of view. What I would say is this wreck is disturbed every single day by all the fishing that takes place on it, all the other things on it. All these artifacts on this wreck will ultimately be destroyed by the action of things other than divers. I don't take anything off these wrecks. I just move it out from where it's been buried to either have a better look at it or to put it out where somebody else can have a better look at it. There's no need to identify this wreck. Everybody knows what it is. But yeah, there's obviously a ton of stuff on here. I mean, legally, by the way, there is nothing to stop anybody taking whatever they want off this wreck. It's not protected in any way, and once again, you may disagree with that. Personally, I think it probably should be, but it isn't. Just in front of me there, I think those were probably batteries, perhaps, or maybe boxes of ammunition, but I think maybe batteries. Once again, going back to that thing, is this wreck is all these wrecks, these naval wrecks, are just full of stuff, because it was a fighting ship, and every inch of space on these ships had a purpose. Whether it's the stuff we've seen already, ammunition, guns, engines, propellers, radars, electrics, whatever it was all there for a purpose. In fact, and one of the purposes there, those are rows of toilets. So yeah, sailors are people like everybody else. They have to go to the toilet, and those were the heads. That's where they went. So yeah, it's kind of basic human needs. The ship had to cater for everything, including obviously making it a ship in which people, it was a fighting vessel. And ships like this were really important during all the world wars. Small, fast, well-armed destroyers like this were the backbone, really, of all the navies. They did all the convoy escort. They did loads of chasing down submarines, and they were lost in fairly significant numbers. So very close to here is a corvette called the Trentonian, which was a Royal Canadian Navy, sunk very similar time to this one, and just once again with a significant loss of life as well. Really actually quite close to the shore, and shows you how even in 1943 and 44 these waters were still relatively dangerous. So you can see here I've come round the wreck now, and I'm back pretty much at the stern. You can see the strobes are there, so it gives you a feel for how much of the wreck there is, how much of the stern there is. I mean, it's not massive, but I don't know. So maybe there's 30 meters of the stern here, I guess. There's also an absolute load of fishing line. You can also see there's a load of silt in the water as well. I did talk about that, the fact that you just get lots and lots near the River Fal, and because the wreck is relatively small and there's a reasonable number of divers on it, a few of us using scooters, clearly it's kicked it up a bit. It's also got this kind of slightly orangey taint to it as well. That's not. It's not what I'm doing. It's just the. I think it's the stuff that's in the water. Oh, here we go. Here's the torpedo tubes. You saw them at the beginning. I mean, this is incredible. These are bronze torpedo tubes, absolutely massive. The fact that both torpedoes are still in there is incredible. You'll see in a minute that one of the heads of the torpedoes has actually fallen off and is lying on the seabed, but the other one is in there completely intact, and therefore potentially dangerous. There's also there's a couple of gauges in front of me there. I don't know if you can see them. So I guess they would have been part of the boiler or the engine probably. Gauges, sometimes quite nice things. People do take them. You can see here I'm just kind of wiggling them out so I can have a bit of a look at them, which I'm doing, kicking up a bit more silt, obviously. That's not great, but at least they are visible. I think slightly disappointingly, what I don't actually do is get any video footage of them, which is a bit irritating. But there you go, they're somewhere down there. In fact, no, there they are. Just seen them just at the top very briefly. Nice pair of gauges, and you kind of wonder who the last person to see those was before they went down on the ship. Oh yeah, no, there they go. There you go. Nice video of a couple of gauges. It'd be nice to see what's written underneath them actually, but obviously it's all concreted over. So once again, there's some sort of steam pipe or maybe water pipe there. This is the back end of the ship. This is where all the machinery for driving it is. There's probably a load of depth charges and stuff around here. I don't think I actually see any, or if I do see them, I don't realise what they are. But this is also where you get them, and you can see there's just wires and cables and stuff everywhere. So you know, incredible. You compare a Second World War ship to a First World War ship, and this is the big difference. How many cables there are, how much electricity there was around the ship. So yeah, there we go. Oh, a bit more, you know, pink sea fan if that's your thing. A fish, quite a few fish. I've had quite a lot of fishermen actually watching my channel. Oh, a bit more ammunition down there. I think that's probably for the 2-pounders for the anti-aircraft guns. So I've had loads of fishermen watching the channel because I think they go and obviously fish all these wrecks, and they've got no idea what's down there. And a few fishermen have dropped me messages either on Instagram or on here going, you know, do you know any wrecks where there's really good fish? And I kind of go, no, I'm really sorry, I don't, because, you know, I just don't know what all these fish are. So if you want to know what fish there are on wrecks, you need to find another diver, I'm afraid. Sorry about that, folks. Or you need to watch the videos, and, you know, if you recognise what the fish are, please feel free to tell me and educate me. I'm sorry, it's really ignorant. I should be better than that, but I'm just not interested really. As far as I'm concerned, they get in the way of the wreck. And as you can see here, there's just a ton of interesting things. It's one of the things I'd love to have the plans for this, so you could actually dive in and, you know, you'd be able to find out what all this stuff is. You can see there's pressure vessels, and there's tubes, and there's cables, and there's brass stuff, just absolutely everywhere. It's incredible and fascinating at the same time as well. There's almost too much stuff. You're constantly getting distracted by something new, but great. And as I said at the beginning of this is just one of the reasons that I love diving at military wrecks. So I think what I've done here is I've gone back along the top of the wreck. So what I'm over is kind of the engine and the boiler space. So some of these pipes and some of these tubes and some of these cables are associated with stuff in the engine room. Although I'll be honest, I've never actually seen an engine on any of my dives. So I'm presuming it's underneath all of this sort of stuff. The wreck is kind of, I think, broadly upright, although quite heavily collapsed. So I think the engine is buried. That clearly is a part of a boiler there. The Eskdale had Admiralty type of boilers, which are a development of a Yarrow boiler. So Yarrow's very distinctive V shape. Admiralty, very similar, only had slightly different tubes. And I think their end's a lesson on boilers. I don't know that much about them, other than to say that looks like a Yarrow boiler, although it's not. It's an Admiralty boiler. I found that during my research. But once again, you know, these are boilers that are designed for small ships, and you get a lot of efficiency for not very much volume, and that's obviously what the Navy wanted. They wanted these thin, fast ships so that they could chase submarines and do all the other kind of stuff. So that's what you've got. And if you've seen my my video from the dive on HMS Negro, which was a First World War ship, you can see very, very similar boilers on that. And the HMS Negro was a First World War destroyer, very similar to this. These are the back of the torpedo tubes, so this is the end, which has got I think they probably loaded them from this end. So the end of the torpedo with the propeller is through these doors here. The other end is where obviously the torpedo comes out, and that's the end where the warhead is going. So you can see what I'm doing is I'm just taking a video along the torpedo tubes. Absolutely incredible, huge amount of brass in these things. You know, once upon a time, people would lift torpedo tubes and sell them from scrap. Obviously, you need a really serious vessel to do that, and you know, clearly it's nicking stuff off a war grave. So not something I particularly approve of, but it was done back in the day. Lots of these vessels were salvaged, and that the amount of brass in those torpedo tubes would be worth a huge amount of money. Though I'm thinking about those lads who were sat on the torpedo tubes in the photo, One of them had a cat, one of them had a dog. Those were young Norwegian sailors. There's no names of that photo, so we don't know who they are. And obviously we don't know if they were amongst the people who were lost when the Eskdale was torpedoed. Potentially they were. Potentially that was the last photo of them. So, poignant to think about that, and to think about these torpedo tubes and those young men. I also always wonder, if they did survive, what happened to them? What happened to the rest of their lives? I mean, lots of these guys would survive a sinking, and then they would be put straight on another ship and go back out to fight. So maybe they survived the war, maybe they lived and went home and saw their family and had kids or whatever, and potentially even some of them could be alive still today. But yeah, there they are. That's pretty much where that photo was taken at the front end of the torpedoes. You see the one on the left, that's the one the warhead's fallen off. The one on the right, that's still there. The warhead is down there somewhere. I'm not sure if I see it on this dive, but I've certainly seen it on one of the dives. And you think about how much explosive there must be left in there. That's a lot. But just incredible to see these kind of things underwater. And for me, these torpedo tubes are probably the highlight of the dives on the Eskdale. Maybe those twin 4-inch guns, they're pretty incredible as well. The operations room or radar room or control room, whatever it is pretty incredible. But for me, it's the torpedo tubes that I absolutely love, and that's why I'm spending so much time here videoing them. I think what I'm also doing here is looking and trying to figure out where that warhead is. Well, that's definitely not it there. I think it's actually down to the left-hand side somewhere. Rick's obviously there. He's potentially having a look around for it as well. But I mean, clearly you can see there's just a massive stuff here, and it's always difficult. There's so much going on. Trying to put it together is a real challenge. I would be lying if I said that everything I've described on this video I saw when I was down there. I didn't. It's only by going back and looking at the video that I've been able to see it. Now this here is one of the prop shafts. It's kind of lying out on the seabed, which is really interesting. So I think so obviously we're back at the stern here. Prop shaft's out. There's a bit of a break in it there, but it is down on the seabed. Now in a minute I'm going to find a bit of the prop shaft that's absolutely it's bent away. It's absolutely incredible. And I always think what causes prop shafts, which are really significant bits of metal, that they're really strong. What manages to get something to bend like that? What sort of force do you need to apply to it? In fact, this is obviously right where the shot is. There's a strobe. In fact, here's the one that's bent. You can just see it to the left-hand side there. There's some pink sea fans on the top of it. And if you've watched my Jacob Jones video, you'll see that one of the prop shafts on that is really heavily bent as well. And it's like, how does that happen? Is it the explosion? Is it the vessel crashing into the bottom? Is it something after it's been on the bottom? Maybe some catch caught in a trawl or something like that. I don't know, but they are really bent. There you go. You can see that one there. There's the prop. The bend is off to the right. You can see also where this one was connected to the ship. There's the bottom of an A-frame just at the top there. It's just gone out of shot, but it was in it a moment ago. So this is a good example of something I didn't see. So the reason I'm circling this prop now is because I'm telling Rick it's there. Actually, you saw right at the beginning of this video, the prop was there. I just didn't see it at that particular moment. So it's only now that I'm seeing it. That's why I'm videoing it. So it's a good example of how you don't take everything in to start with. There's the bit where it's broken off. That would have been attached to the hull. So that's worn away or snapped off or something. Who knows? So yeah, this is the reason that I first started carrying a video camera, is just so that I could go back and look at stuff when I got to the surface. It's only I guess since then that I thought putting it on YouTube is a good thing to do, and when I became aware, actually how many people enjoyed my videos, I've been trawling through my back catalogue and obviously doing what I'm doing here, which was putting the Torque the narration on top of them. So this dive here is from 2022. I'm recording this in March 2025, so it's 2.5 years ago, which is why sometimes I don't remember all the details of the dive. So yeah, sorry about that, folks. You're just going to have to bear with my memory, or what's left of it anyway. So the good thing about the Eskdale, obviously, is I have dived it twice. So that kind of helped reinforce some of the stuff I learned on this dive, which was the first one. So I think I'm getting towards the end of my dive here. So therefore, I'm not going too far away from the shot line. I'm just having a good look round in and amongst the stern. I guess just having a look, seeing if I can find anything particularly interesting. And clearly, there's not much at the moment. There's all sorts of stuff on the seabed. This thing here, no idea what it is. Looks quite interesting. Would have had a real purpose. No doubt, somebody who was on this wreck would be able to tell me what it was, or who was served on the ship. Unfortunately, that knowledge has probably been lost now. I don't think there's any of these ships afloat anywhere. I don't think there's been any left, for a very long time. So, yeah, I guess it's quite sad in some ways that all that history has been lost. Probably saw the grapple just to my left. You can see the strobes flashing away. You can see all this fishing line that we've seen several times before. And I guess I'm just using up my bottom time. What I'll do is at the end of this dive is I'll put my decompression profile on. People like to have a look at that. I'll kind of talk you through it. You'll see exactly how long, what stops I did, all that kind of stuff. There's another, that looks like a bit of a gauge there, maybe another gauge or something round anyway. As you can see, there's just tons and tons of different things here. And what I'm doing is just doing the thing that I sometimes do, which is just to take my mind, just to sort of have a look. That might be that thing there, that thing on the left, I think is actually the warhead for the torpedo. So that's probably why I'm flashing it to Rick, and that's why I'm spending a bit of time looking at it. In fact, it is. That is the warhead from the torpedo, and probably that's what I've been looking for. So the actual torpedo tube, I think, is up to the right of where I am now. You just imagine how much explosive is in there. That's a whole lot. You don't want it to go bang. In fact, there's a torpedo tube just above me. So, not surprisingly, it's kind of, I guess it's broken off, maybe rusted away or something like that, and just fallen down. There's another gauge on the right-hand side there. Not sure what I'm doing here. Hopefully not hammering at that warhead. That would be a bad thing to do. Perhaps indicating something to Rick. Don't know. Oh, there's a load more ammunition in there. As I say, there's gauge on the right-hand side. There's just a whole load of stuff. I've seen a couple of portholes. If you're watching the video, you've probably seen them as well. Just, in fact, there's torpedo tubes, so you can see how close the warhead was to them. It just shows you how much there is on this. And I've said it a few times. I'll say it again. Just a really interesting dive. Those are gauges that I pulled out earlier on with the writing underneath. No doubt those would have told the crew, what the pressure was of the item they were looking at, and a ship like this would have had a whole load of those gauges absolutely everywhere. There's that steam pipe or water pipe or whatever it was again. So you can see there's a whole load of stuff that you've seen through this video. You can see how close everything is, how small the ship was. There's the top of the torpedo tubes, loads of fish. You've seen the strobes over the other side. There's Rick. I think he's probably getting some good photos of those torpedo tubes. I'm lighting it up for him, like the good bloke that I am. You can see that I'm right on top of the wreck here. So the wreck, is probably what, 5 or 6 meters off the seabed, maybe not much more than that. So relatively flat. Now this dive's gone on quite a long time. So I'm absolutely starting to think about getting back up to the surface. And I guess that's probably why I'm on top of the wreck. It is a bit shallower, so just making the most of my time down here. I'll be looking at my my shear water, which is what I use to control my decompression. I'm probably thinking, oh, I've got about 2 hours of deco to do. I know that if I that will reduce when I accelerate my decompression, but that's kind of normally about my cue to start getting back to shot and start ascending. So you can see that's exactly what I'm doing here. I'm coming up. There's my strobes. You see they're mine, which is it's a double strobe. If you've seen my video, you know that's one of my kind of hallmarks. Yellow gloves, double strobes. That's a good sign that Dom's on the wreck. But I'm going to take those strobes off now, and that's why the scooter's kind of dangling in the mid-water. And then I'm going to start accelerating up. You can see Rick is around me as well. So the two of us are together. We both, it's a really nice thing. We both think the same way. We both know what we're going to do, and we're sticking together, which is quite important. You know, particularly obviously if something goes wrong. And there he is. Rick is coming up at the same time as me, and we're both on our way. So dive is over. Well, it's not over. We've got all the deco to do, but the bit of the dive that we're really interested in is done, and we're heading up to the surface. There all seems to be quite a high level of interest in my decompression profile. So this is the usual download from the Shearwater Cloud desktop. You can see there I'm running the cursor along the dive profile, and you can see in the little information box, you know, my current depth, my TTS, i.e. how long I've got to go to the surface. As you can see, the maximum that gets to on this dive is about 96 minutes. So, you know, about an hour and a half, which is entirely, you know, it's quite nice actually. Often on the longer and deeper dives, that will be 2.5 or maybe 3 hours for a really deep one. So it's that's quite nice. The other thing, and obviously the other thing I know is that once I get to my deco stops, I will increase the PO2 to 1.5, and that TTS will come down. If you can see there, I've just done there, and it goes from 80 something minutes down to about 79. So I gained 10 minutes by accelerating the deco. The other thing that I've got to do on here is I'm going to turn on more data. And you can see there it is. It's just come on. There's the some additional lines. There's a kind of zigzaggy orange line that goes up from left to right. That's the CNS. The other thing that I've got on here is the green line. That's my PO2 set in the computer. You can see there the step from 1.3 to 1.5, and then it stays at 1.5 pretty much for most of the deco. When I get to 6 meters, I actually change it down to 1.4 again. And the reason for that is at 6 meters with 1.5 PO2, it can be quite difficult just to maintain buoyancy. So, you know, 1.5 doesn't really make any difference to the deco, just makes it a bit easier on the buoyancy. And then right at the end there, you can see when my deco is cleared, I change it down to 0.7 again. That's just in order to get it to the surface. If you leave it at 1.4 or 1.3, then the unit just keeps firing and you ditch loads of O2. And in fact, the unit won't let you do that anyway. The other thing to mention on these graphs are the kind of zigzaggy lines that come down from the top left where they're quite high to the bottom right where they're quite low. Those are the PO2 of helium and nitrogen respectively. Obviously, they reduce when you get to shallow depths because the unit essentially gets full of oxygen. So yeah, it's an interesting bit of a thing to see. And the CNS line, which comes from bottom left to top right. CNS is a measure of oxygen toxicity, and in theory, the maximum you want on a dive is 80%. I think I finished this one on 90%, and this is not a shallow dive, but according to, you know, by the sounds of some of the ones I've done, is a relatively shallow dive, and routinely, you know, on the bigger dives, we'll get heading towards 200% CNS, maybe more than 200%. I'll be honest, I don't pay any attention whatsoever to CNS, but people are interested, people do like to see it. For me, far more important is the PO2 in the breathing loop. So I personally wouldn't go much more than 1.6, although, you know, once again, that's an area that's open for debate, and it's all about what you're doing when you've got those high PO2s and what level of risk you're happy to accept, and all those kind of things. Probably outside the scope of this video. Anyway, I thought I'd finish up with a bit of video from the second dive. Unfortunately, I had problems with my video camera, so I didn't get the video of the whole dive. But this is obviously that's the warhead off the torpedo tubes, and up there you can see the torpedo tubes again. And obviously, you know, I came straight here on the second dive. It was a really memorable bit from the first dive, and you know, when I see these, I obviously think about those young lads with that photo with their dog and their cat on the on top of them. And I think it's probably a poignant moment to remember the people who lost their lives on the Eskdale, not only when it was sunk, but also during the battle with the minesweeper that I talked about. You know, we all owe them a debt of gratitude. So I think it's worth just taking a moment to think about them all, those young, brave Norwegian lads, a long way from home, fighting to, you know, in the hope that their country would be free. And, you know, great news that it did eventually happen, although very, very sad that they never lived to see it. So I hope you've enjoyed my video of the dive on the Eskdale, or a bit of both dives on the Eskdale. I hope you've liked the story. I hope it's like me, you'll think about those brave men. And as always with my videos, it would be great if you would leave me some feedback, if you like, or comments, or subscribe, or turn on the notifications, or any of that sort of stuff. Tell your friends, and yeah, well, I hope to see you on the next one. Thank you very much.